Sometimes people give gifts, quote unquote, or use the word gifting, but what they're truly
Mhm.
doing is investing and they expect a certain return.
A gift is given voluntarily without payment in return.
Okay, I'm gonna need you to say that again. A lot of Black women specifically oftentimes feel oppressed that we don't get to enjoy the lavish items that we see other ethnic groups having more access to. Getting these lavish gifts or having a suitor that provides these lavish gifts, that people are missing what are typically red flags.
The person who's receiving the gift, are they functioning out of guilt or obligation at some point?
What does that say about the gifter? We want some
Absolutely.
healthy relationships.
Because you can give all the gifts you want and yet lack a genuine relationship.
From holiday sparkle and cuffing season to spring flings to steamy summer romances, we explore the science of dating and ask, what does your gifting behavior say about you? This episode is for anyone who is serious about doing the hard work to have healthy relationships. While we focus on gifting, the principles in introspection can be applied to various relationship dynamics and types. Be prepared for the many pearls of our guest, Dr. Elaine Richardson, an expert in self-empowerment. And as always, don't forget to do what? Click subscribe. Some would say long are gone the days of the Stepford wife. Today, there's been quite a bit of transition of womanhood, defined in diverse ways. And now it's gotten to the point where women are demanding what they want in relationships. But have we gone too far? There are some women who define their worth in the relationships based on the gifts that they received. And now you may see on social media that there's this trend of displaying the gifts women receive from their suitors. The question is this truly an expression of feminism? Or have we gone a step too far in the wrong direction? We are so excited to have Dr. Elaine Richardson with us today. She is a retired psychologist and the executive director of Empowered Women's Ministry. Dr. Richardson, it's always a pleasure to have you on the virtual couch. And because you have had such a plethora of experiences working with women from the college age to the more mature age, I was excited to have your input on this topic. So let me find out, have you noticed this trend in the current social environment where women are displaying or outward with their expectation of wanting certain lavish gifts as a sign of their suitor's interest?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me into this marvelous space. I love the work that you're doing, and I feel so excited to be able to be a part of it. So, thank you again. Honestly, I will tell you, I have not seen that trend as much. But when you said that, the first thing I thought about, and it's some old song, I don't remember from what era, but it was Can You Pay My Bills? And it was like, okay,
It's
so it's this
relevant.
kind of the same trend,
Right,
right? The same
right.
trend that you would see. And I would think so much. But one of the first things I think is why does anyone feel the need to display what they have?
Mm,
Okay, so that was is one thing that I would really want to maybe talk about. But the
hmm
other thing would be, yes, there's nothing wrong with stating what you want in a relationship. But the
hmm
key thing is to, and we'll talk more about this as we go on, but to understand why do you want it? And
mm.
so there's some reasoning that we'd want to go through to think about it. And it's so much because we have social media, right?
Yeah.
And so much of what we want is on display. We want others to see something to form opinions about us. But I'm much more interested in the opinions we have of ourselves.
That part right there. And there are a lot of the, I'm not going to call out the generations, but other generations who feel that this is a form of women's liberation, the fact that the tables were turned and have been turned, and in some respects, in some societies and cultures, the tables are still turned where the men are sort of making their demands and what they want in relationships. So a lot of the younger women feel like, well, it's our turn. We're in a different time, a different society, and now I get to define what I want in my relationship. And I am placing this particular price tag, so to speak, on my worth.
I don't think it's a form of feminism. I think it's a form of, okay, I get to say what I want, which honestly, all along you could have said what you wanted, but we were socialized to think that we couldn't. And the women who did speak out received labels, but all along you could always say what you wanted and what your worth is. And so, what I think, again, it gets to that introspective piece. What is your worth? What is your real value?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you want for who you think you are? And we know that there's no price tag on it. You can't give me enough for who I think I am.
Right.
And so, what am I willing to settle for? And why do I want those particular things? Not that it's a right or a wrong, but thinking about it, if I can think in terms of lavish, when we think about lavish, that's over and above, you
Mm-hmm.
know, what does that look like? And it's profuse, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you think about, and again, it depends on people and situations. If there's a young woman who comes from a place, a low socioeconomic status, has not gone anywhere, has not done anything, and she is in an environment where she goes to a fancy dinner at a restaurant, with someplace that's out of her league, that
Mm-hmm.
might feel like a lavish gift to her. Whereas to someone else, it might need to be, riding in a private jet. It might need to be some furs,
Mm-hmm.
some jewels,
Mm-hmm.
trips abroad. It might, so it just depends on the person as to what constitutes lavish. And then, but the idea, sometimes we forget things, right? We forget very
Mm-hmm.
simple definitions. A gift is given voluntarily without payment in return.
Okay, I'm gonna need you to say that again because I do think we have forgotten that definition.
Yeah, that a gift is given voluntarily without payment in return.
So
It's something that's bestowed.
is
Go
that
ahead.
one of the biggest errors that we're making nowadays? And in my opinion, I think we do. I was having this conversation recently where it was more about the business mode. It was a video of a very popular celebrity who is considered to be a mogul, has multiple business ventures, and he made the comment of that many people only give certain businesses help that don't actually need help. And that often implying the fact that there is almost a ulterior motives when people actually gift a business or help a business. And so I'm extrapolating that comment to what you're saying because what I responded in terms of what was said was the fact that I think we use the wrong definitions, which is what it sounds like you're getting to or pointing out that sometimes people are making investments in people, meaning I expect something in return, even though we're calling it a gift, right? So sometimes it's like on the business end, I'm helping you, but I'm investing because deep down I have this unexpressed expectation that you're going to do something in return, right? And so I can extrapolate that to relationships to what you're saying that sometimes people give gifts, quote unquote, or use the word gifting, but what they're truly
Mhm.
doing is investing and they expect a certain return on their
Mhm.
investment. And that can vary in many ways.
Many, many ways. Again, going back to old old stereotypes. The guy that takes a girl out to a fancy dinner, and then he has an expectation that after dinner something's going to happen. And there really is that expectation. So that goes to our motive. What is our motivation? And one of the things I'd ask several things of women, what are you looking for? And what are you escaping? And these are some things that we can talk about a little bit more. But what lures you in and why does that lure you in? But here's the thing you're just talking about. What are your expectations of the gift giver? And what are your expectations of yourself? What do you expect from that gift giver? Do you expect for them just to keep piling on wonderful, marvelous gifts? And then what are you doing in return? Oh, I'm just a companion. Oh, I'm just a girlfriend. I'm just this. And then what do you expect of yourself? And that's really harder. I think that's harder because sometimes we enter into things without thinking about expectations of our own. What allows you to go from being a girlfriend to being a prostitute?
One of my concerns with this particular trend, and in some ways, I'm going to speak to the sisters that are out there. I get the mindset that would lead you to want to feel that way because a lot of Black women specifically oftentimes feel oppressed, that we don't get to enjoy the lavish items that we see other ethnic groups having more access to. So I can in some way understand that desire to, wow, this is what it feels like to have this or have this access. But on the other hand, we're also one of the most sought after races and groups and subgroups, ethnic groups when it comes to human trafficking. And with my extensive studies in human trafficking and that type of socialization and behaviors, it really concerns me that sometimes getting these lavish gifts or having a suitor that provides these lavish gifts, that people are missing what are typically red flags in terms of being lured into a certain type of
Mhm.
dynamic that then can make them vulnerable with being trafficked. And I'm leaning into a little bit of another celebrity case that's very popular, and it's hard to avoid it with this topic, where the victims or the alleged victims or alleged survivors, I would prefer to say, have shared that their experiences seem to have a very similar MO, where it is the desire to be a part of the industry, a desire to be a part of a certain social status, a desire to get into a door that's very tight and very limited in who gets in and who becomes successful. And they allured to these types of parties and events. And that's where they get caught up in situations that are so unfortunate. So it's I do want you to lean into that because, how do we define these boundaries that keeps us safe and healthy?
And I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, and again, I want to go to some of the introspective things that we don't necessarily have the answers for today, but I want people to think about that. So, one of the questions would be what shapes your desire to have someone else fund the things you want? And I think that what
Wait, I
shapes your
feel
desire?
like I feel like that's a whole session by itself.
It
Woo!
really
Okay.
is because you have to think about what plays into it. And some of the things, and again, I'm just going to go there. Sometimes our sexual history impacts that, whether that includes childhood molestation, sexual assault, rape, or serial sexual partners. Sometimes that will play a role in our decision to get what we can, where we can, in any way we can. And by no means am I saying every woman who is in a relationship with a man who bestows great gifts on them. I am not saying that. I'm not generalizing out. But every woman has a reason for making the decisions they make, whatever those reasons might be. And when you think about it, there's some concerns that could come up regardless of your sexual history. Self-esteem is huge. What you think others think of you. That self-esteem, self-worth, what you believe you have worth and value in. If you've been in a position where you've told you're nothing, you're not going to ever be anything, you're less than, you're not enough, you're what are you too much, whatever it is, that has poured into how you view yourself. Am I worth anything more than this? Well, yeah, I'm worth all these really wonderful things. But what about who you are as a woman? The other thing is self-efficacy. And for me, That is probably at the root of a lot of it. Do I believe I can achieve the things I need to achieve for myself? So that would be true feminism, is to be able to do that based on equity, to be able to do the things you need to do, and then by choice be involved in a relationship where someone can give you those marvelous things. That would be a better example of
I
feminism.
love it. Yes, yes. I love that you said, I love that you brought up self-efficacy. Also because you're right, there is two paths to achieving those things if that's what someone really desires. You can either set out to obtain it yourself,
Mhm.
and your perception of your ability to obtain it does reflect your self-efficacy as well as your self-image, and esteem. So you're right. There are two perspectives, and there are some people who do realize or do are determined to obtain those items for themselves. And there are others who do make that decision to obtain it through a partner or someone else, and this type of behavior can be seen in other types of relationships, whether it's family members or, um, persons of interest or
Mhm.
friendships. So it can really have the same core issue when you break it down like that. So I'm glad that you said that. One of the things I also wanted to look at, because sometimes we do have some gents that watch us,
Mhm.
I wanted to
Mhm.
look at the man's perspective in this, because I really do wonder, um, what draws certain men to, and I know some men do feel like they want to be caretakers, and that's oftentimes the reasoning that's given as to why they gift such lavish items. And I've seen things from like huge expensive travel trips to cars to, and granted these are people of certain types of status, but even then it really does make me wonder, when you start off, especially in the courting phase, where you're giving extremely expensive items, even if you have it, what does that say about the gifter?
I think that that is marvelous perspective. It can say many things. I love how you said sometimes someone just wants to be a caretaker, but you also want to think about what is the woman bringing to the relationship, and is that what that gifter is seeking? Is that gifter seeking a particular type of woman to do particular things, to look a certain way, to represent with him in some situations? So you have to think about, again, those expectations that come up. And one of the things that's really huge, I think, that everybody needs to understand, is this going to be a genuine relationship? And that's the important thing, because you can give all the gifts you want and yet lack a genuine relationship on either side. And that could leave one or the other of the partners wanting more. Thank you for this gift, but I actually would like to spend time with you. Thank you for being so beautiful, but I really just want to spend time with you.
Right.
And so, what role does a genuine relationship play in how the gifter feels? I'm not
Hmm.
looking for a genuine relationship. You fit my bill for right now. I'm willing to pay you in gifts to come and go with me and to be with me and just hang out, be my partner and my companion for a while. No investment of time, no investment in a relationship, but very willing to pay whatever it takes.
Right. Wow. The onion, I'm slowly unpeeling. I'm going to roll back to something you said that I thought was really interesting, is the gifter that is molding the individual to have a certain appearance. I never even
Mm-hmm.
thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like oftentimes I think about the low esteem gifter who
Mm-hmm.
feels like this is the only way to keep and hold on to this potential person
Mm-hmm.
that they feel is above their level. I don't even know why we
Mm-hmm.
say that. Like you're dating outside of your level.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
Can we unpack that? And then also, the gifter that wants to impress to make the person feel like they're on a certain level that you can't get
Hmm.
to because you can never give me back this level of gifts. And those who want to control the individual. But I've never really thought about the group that gift, and I have seen this, but I just never really thought about it. That gift with the intention of trying to make their partner look like their items look, right? So
Hmm.
having the same type of image, like I have this particular type of partner, I've molded this woman to look a certain way because I'm a certain guy of a certain status. And I hear people say that all the time.
Hmm.
I just never really
They,
thought about that as a motive,
hmm,
but you're right.
hmm, it could be. And what we also have to remember when women are engaged in this relationship, and men too, if it's the other way around, but the gift and the gifter, the person who's receiving the gift, are they functioning out of guilt or obligation at some point in the relationship? The gifts are really nice. I really like all this. I love to travel. I love all these things, but I really don't want to be with you, but I don't want to give up my stuff. So I'm feeling a little bit guilty for whatever the reason or obligation, or maybe even pressure. Pressure. I've given you all of this, so you will do whatever it is, fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You will stay, you will obey, you will
You
act
will,
the role.
mhm,
Yes,
you
and the
will do
list goes
whatever.
on.
Look at all I've done for you.
It's true.
And yes, when you look from head to toe and you realize they've all been gifts. You look at what maybe you're driving, you look at the things that you do, and you think, okay, okay, I'm over it, but I'm going to stay because I really like the gifts and I'm feeling guilty or feeling pressure. So there's so much that comes into it. There's so much. I think that when we talk about all these things and we just touch lightly on it, but the idea is for us to and us collective, we're a community, to be able to help our young women find their own value and worth in themselves. Having somebody who is wealthy enough to give you great gifts is wonderful. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not a bad thing. But you need to understand your own motivation for entering into relationships. And if your motivation is to show someone up, motivation is to say, look at me, let me put all this stuff on social media so that people will see, then that might not be the motivation that will give you the success and the fulfillment that you ultimately want.
What would you say to an individual who's caught up in this situation? They're generally interested in the person who is suiting them, but this person is gifting them these very lavish gifts, and it perhaps may be making them uncomfortable, or they're not quite sure what the motives are. What do you say to that individual that gets caught up in that type of situation?
I don't know if it's possible, but what I would say is honest conversation. Honest conversation. This is how I feel, and I'd really like to explore how you're feeling about this. Oh, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Here's some more money. Go buy some more stuff. And it's like, yes, but I want you to hear me. So, are we in a relationship where we can actually talk and talk about things other than this marvelous lifestyle we have? Or
Hmm.
is that it? And at that point, then you have to determine what's important to you. Every person has their own idea of what's important to them.
Right.
If getting gifts, showing it to everyone, and being able to say, "Look at me, I'm doing this. I look this way. I'm going places you've never been. I'm going places." Doing if that's important to you, then continue on. But sometimes, no matter what it looks like on the outside, we are all yearning for something.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's a closer, more meaningful relationship
Hmm.
because I believe, and this is my opinion,
Hmm.
that when we're in that position, we don't really have the positive social support that we had before
Mm.
because we're leaving those things behind and we're moving into a world that may not be as welcoming and as genuine as the one we've left.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And you can see also sometimes people move into these situations and they can't bring the people of importance with them because of the imbalance of the lifestyle that they used to live versus
Hmm.
this particular new lifestyle. So sometimes it's more than sort of the symbolism of what you're getting into and what you're leaving behind, but also just the practical, valuable relationships you've always had
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
now we perhaps used to go on trips to local areas like Arizona, but now you and your boo are traveling to Dubai, and I can't
Hmm.
keep up with that lavish life. So
Yes.
now it creates somewhat of a distance between our relationships because the people that you normally value can't now engage in certain experiences with you because they just simply can't afford it.
And also, if the gift giver doesn't have the right motives, there could be isolation, intentional isolation with that.
Right.
And that gets to the human trafficking piece of it, that
Mm-hmm.
isolation, because we all know that in human trafficking, quite often the person will present as a boyfriend, will present as
Mm-hmm.
a love interest, and will do the gifting, will do all these marvelous things until there's enough distance created between the woman and her friends, her family, whoever her
Right.
positive support is. And
Right.
then they show who they really are.
Mm-hmm. One
And
of the red flags, one of the most
yes,
common red flags is the isolation
it's
and
the
distancing
isolation.
between relationships. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. So, how do people, because there's this concept of dating on your level, being in a relationship on your level, how do you balance someone who may be coming from a more lavish lifestyle, and you are coming from a more humble lifestyle? How do you balance those dynamics in a relationship?
Honestly, and I know this is not, it's going to feel like it's not an answer, but it really is.
Mm-hmm.
We have to know, what do we value? What do we believe? We have to know that for ourselves. And if we understand what we value, what's important to us, what do we really believe, then we'll be able to sort of discriminate in relationships, because people may come at you with all sorts of offerings. Let's do this, let's do that, I can do this. But you have to think about, what do I value? What's important to me? If I value a lifestyle that I think this person offers, then I'm off and running. Okay, I'm living
Mm-hmm.
out my value system.
Right.
And if I value relationship over
Mm-hmm.
goods, then I may take a step back and say, let's get to know each other. Let's talk about some things. Fine, let's get to know each other on my private jet while we're jetting off somewhere. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to think about, what's important to you. What
Mm-hmm.
outcome are you looking for? And that may sound a little calculating, but what I think, it will save us from heartache. If we know what's important to us, then nobody can sway us
Mm-hmm.
with flashy, wonderful, marvelous things.
Mm-hmm.
We know what's important to us. And if we know what outcome we expect, it's one thing if you say, I expect to be married and to have 2 kids in 5 years, when you
Mm-hmm.
talk to the person who has just gone through 15 women in 15 months, then,
Right.
that's going to be an unrealistic expectation.
Right. Right. But what about the love language? Right? Because a few years back, I'm dating myself, but the book has been out for quite some time.
Uh-huh.
And people talk about their love languages. Well, I gift you these items because this
Mm-hmm.
is my love
Mm-hmm.
language.
Mm-hmm. And people do say that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. There are people who love to just give. But again, if you're paying attention to who the person is, how does that person treat other people? How do they treat, when you're out at a restaurant, or their friends or their family, how are they treating other people? And you'll say, this really is their love language. And they're
Mm-hmm.
just showing me excessive love because I'm worth it, right? And
Oh,
that's
so you're
fine.
saying looking for the consistency to see if this is
Yes,
truly their love language in other relationships.
yes,
Oh, I get you.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That makes
Or is
total
it
sense.
yes?
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I think what you were sharing in terms of what is important to you and understanding your own values and defining your own values and the lifestyle that is important to you can be applied to various scenarios, right? You may
Hmm.
have someone who's an outdoors person and someone who's a homebody. You know, does that Can you make that work? Can you figure out, okay, is it important for me where I need to be at home, or is this a relationship I'm willing to bend a little bit and do some outdoor stuff? So it can apply
Mhm,
to a diversity of dynamics, because oftentimes we're not going to meet a partner that's exactly like us with all the same interests. So at some
mhm,
point, you're going to have this type of conversation. And
mhm.
not everyone is, I would say, if I looked at our society as a whole, I think communication is one of our weakest standpoint. And so not everyone knows how to have these conversations. So what would be one of the questions you can ask someone if you're trying to understand whether or not their value system aligns with yours?
And I think a lot of that, I mean, you could come right out and say, well, what do you value? But I don't think that gets to the heart of the matter. Again, you have to be
Mhm.
observant, but you also want to see, what do you talk about when you're with that person? What do you two talk about? If it's just a
Mhm.
hot sex thing and you just get together and have sex and then you get a lot of gifts and you go home, okay, then you have a sense of what that is.
Right.
But if you're
Mhm.
actually going to dinner, going places, doing things that may
Mhm.
be extravagant, but you're learning about one another, because as people talk, then you get to understand, oh no, this person hasn't seen their family in 5 years. They have no desire to. If you're a family person and family oriented, that's something for you to really think about clearly.
Yeah.
So I think conversation, and you're right, communication is such, I think it's underrated in what we actually do,
Mhm.
but communication is so important to be able just to have conversation. And that way you learn so much about a person. But
Right.
again, if neither one of you are willing to have the hard conversations, the difficult conversations, the good conversations,
Mhm.
whatever, then you will always stay at that sort of very basic level of relationship, regardless of the
Mhm.
gift giving or not.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
won't develop a genuine
A genuine,
relationship.
yeah, yeah, I
Mhm,
totally agree. And I'm sure many of us have seen that happen, either
mhm.
experienced it ourselves or have witnessed it happening to others. Dr. Richardson, you have left us with so many pearls. I'm in my head rotating through some of the introspective questions that you asked us today. So I'm definitely going to recommend for everyone to reel back this one more time and make sure you go through those introspective questions, whether you're in a relationship or aspiring to be in a relationship. I think Dr.
Mhm.
Richardson has left us with some really good questions that we can ask ourselves and really start to define what's important to us, what's our value, what's our self-worth, do we have a good self-esteem, what questions we would want to learn about someone else. I
Mhm.
definitely think that following that path and following those types of questions will lead us into a healthier relationship. And if we do feel that we struggle with communication, perhaps seeking help and sitting on a couch with someone like Dr.
Yeah.
Richardson to help us work through
Mhm.
our
Mhm.
boundaries, our historical issues and life traumas
Mhm.
may be the first step. And maybe the first step is not a relationship. So that when you do encounter someone who wants to pour on the lavish gifts, you're able to really be introspective and then also have a better understanding of where that person's coming from, and then make the right decision for yourself.
There it
I love
is.
it.
That was perfect. I love that. A
I love
wonderful
it. I love
summation.
it. Dr. Richardson, if you're always dropping pearls about life, you make us think about things, you make us really assess ourselves in such a deep way. If people want to understand more or learn more from you, where can they find you?
Excuse me, you find me Empowered Women's Ministry at Instagram. Uh, I don't know what else. I think that's probably the only thing
That's
where
the
we're
only place
actually
they
doing
can find you.
anything.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
I get it. Yeah, a
Empowered Women's
lot of us are
Ministry. Uh-huh.
Instagrammers.
Uh-huh. If you're not, I don't know if anybody uses email anymore, but
Some
if you
people
do,
do.
I have an email. Okay. I
You
have
can
an
share your
email.
email.
It's Dr. Elaine Richardson at gmail.com. So easy. Yes, if you still use email and want to do that, or certainly on Instagram and you follow us, we try to put some things out because we know
Mhm.
that as women, we need all the wonderful positive support we can get. We don't need anyone tearing us down or telling us we're making
Right.
huge mistakes. We need people to really care for us and care about us and
We
help us
sure
in
do.
positive ways.
Yes, especially for my sisters out there. We've been through so
Yes.
much.
Yes.
We want some
Absolutely.
healthy relationships. I absolutely agree with you. And I am Dr. T, the hand behind the handle of Healthy Bump Club right here on YouTube, and also Healthy Bump Club on Instagram. And now we're also on fan base. Yes, we support our own.
Okay.
So we are on
Right.
fan base as well, and we're growing our support system right there. Now, if you have not checked out other pearls from Dr. Richardson, we're gonna link you to some other episodes that we've had where we've had to be able to really dive in and indulge in her wisdom. So make sure you check out those other videos. And after that, we hope to see you guys where? The next episode.
All
And
right. Yes.
don't forget to comment, like, and share. We'll see you next time.